So today's episode is slightly on the shorter side of things compared to what I've done in previous weeks. I think the last episode was only like 18 or 19 minutes, but the one before that was like 25, I think. Anyways, this one's a bit shorter, but I got the two main projects that I wanted to get done in this episode done, so I didn't see any point in trying to make it drag on any longer than it needed to. If you're new to my channel and this series, because at this time that's the only thing on my channel, then this is Fairview, and I've been working on it for about 2.5 months now. And last week we placed down the train station, which is somewhere off to the top left of the screen. And now I'm just placing down some rocks along the side of this train track to kind of try to cover up the cliff here, because the vanilla texture doesn't look that great. These rocks are by Avanya, I think, and yeah, just using them instead of the vanilla rocks which I used on the other side to try out some different things here. And I also put that concrete wall in because it was just still too steep and it wouldn't have looked that great, so I just tried to cover up the height differences in a few different ways. Yeah, now I'm just finishing this off. I thought we were going to move on to the next bit, but that's coming pretty soon, I think. So here I'm putting down a key along the side of where the cargo tracks will be. And in between this key and the road there, I'm going to be placing down some kind of light industrial buildings. So not like anything too over the top, but just a little bit of industrial, because we don't really have all that much in the city at the moment. Only like 2 or 3 buildings off to the right of the screen, because the camera just flipped around there. I was going to say left, but obviously it's right now. You can. Okay, I'm going off on a weird tangent. I don't know where this is going. So, in this episode, no, in the last episode, I disabled the sprites, the grass sprites. I did this because when I did the high school in episode 9, or 2 episodes ago or something like that, they were showing through the decal for the soccer field and the American football field, I think, or maybe it was just the soccer field and the American football field was okay. Yeah, I disabled them, but I don't actually like how it looks, so I might re-enable them and figure out a way to hide them in some other way, which could be using the ruined ground texture, since it only looks a little bit different to the regular grass. Okay, so there where the fence was just like clipping through the key, I was kind of hoping that it had like snapped to the top of the key, but it didn't, so I kind of just had to put the fences around the edge of the key instead. And here is just kind of some random lot that just to fill in the space, because you can't fit a building in there, so I'm just putting down like some scraps and things and a few containers. I'm not really sure how anything would get in there, but it looks nice. And here I'm just kind of putting down some of these little things from Park Life. I can't remember what they're called, but I also do a bit more off camera of that. And here we're starting on the cargo like hub, I guess. And I'm just putting down some entrance from the other side so that people can get down this cliff. And yeah, I think we move on to the cargo place in a minute. I'm kind of not sure if I'm happy about how it ended up turning out, but I'll talk about that when we get to it. Because for now I'm just putting down a narrow road right along the side of the train track so that trucks can drive along and go under that big gantry crane, and they can lift up the containers, and then it goes across to the train track and puts them down on the trains. Only the one-way road fit in here, which I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, you're just driving straight through and then you come out at some other point. And connecting it up to the other road here, I decided to leave a rail crossing here because hopefully the train traffic won't get too bad. I'm sure there's like a way that I can mess it up somewhere out of camera if it needs to be, so that things don't get really hectic, but it shouldn't. Because I'm not even sure if I'm going to connect the other side of the train track, so we might not even end up having any rail traffic at all, but it should function. And here's just a little turnaround thing. It's gone off the camera now, but so that trucks can turn around without having to go down that one-way road that goes past the train track. Because obviously trucks would need, maybe not obviously, it's just a habit that I keep saying like obviously all the time, but anyways, the trucks would need kind of a gentler curve to turn around if they've got trailers and things on, so I tried to provide that space where they could turn around rather than trying to do a U-turn at the end of some dead-end street, because that wouldn't really work. I mean, to be honest, if trucks weren't really kind of going up that way, they probably wouldn't anyway, and they'd just turn back onto the other side of the street, but in theory it was a good idea at the time. And here I'm building, or at least attempted to build, because this actually I'm kind of happy with it actually how it turned out, but it's a turntable for the trains so they can turn around if they're not going any further on the line. And yeah, like most trains, at least back in the past, they weren't didn't have cabs at both ends, so they would have needed to turn around. In about 2 minutes time I end up putting down a locomotive on the turntable that is like double-sided, so it has a cab at both ends, so I guess it's just parked there because it's not in use, and could be used for shunting things around. But back in the past, you wouldn't have had that, and the trains would have needed to turn around if they were terminating in Fairview, so that's why it's there. I'm not sure about the safety of having trains reversing over a level crossing. That might be a bit dangerous because the train drivers can't see if there's like someone standing or walking across the tracks or whatever, but I mean they'd come out from the rail yard, go to the turntable, turn around and come back, so hopefully there wouldn't be any incidents, and people would be able to tell them to stop because they probably wouldn't be going that fast anyways. And maybe that turntable is also added like a long time after or something, and like my thoughts were that the rail would go all the way through the city, but as I discussed in the last episode when I was talking about the slopes and things of what railway tracks should be in real life, if you're really trying really hard to make your city look realistic and you need to abide by realistic kind of slopes for your train tracks and roads and things, then the other side of the map was far too steep to really put any railways down, so I'm just gonna like pretend that the rail goes out there and try not to show it ending on camera at any point, but it does. It just kind of ends a little bit past the train station, but I plan to connect that up sometime in the future. Yeah, here I'm putting down a whole lot of like cargo. Oh, I've forgotten the word. Just like flatbed trailers. They're not carriages. I know that much. And yeah, here's this double-sided locomotive that it makes no sense that it's on the turntable, and maybe the turntable is the slightest bit too short. So like you could see with that one, or it's gone now anyway, but hopefully you saw that it was kind of right on the edge of the turntable. But that's a minor tweak I can make if I think it's necessary. And here this train station initially says Alexandria Platz, which I think is German, and it's based off a train station in Germany, in Berlin. And I wanted to cover that up because it doesn't really fit with the American theme that I'm going for here. It's like cities set in America with German train station. It doesn't really work that well. So I tried covering up with the props for the train that I'm using and convert it into procedural objects to kind of scale it up a bit so it covered the whole sign. And here I'm making a train out of props, and I'm going to place it in the train station in a few seconds time. Then I'll disable the traffic lane, like the trains from going through that track, so that when the trains do arrive at the train station, like the moving vehicles do, they won't clip into the train. And I probably should have done some more traffic management around this part for like future, and to stop different trains from going different places. Like, say for some reason a cargo train ends up going through the middle of the train station, even though there'd be a cargo track there. But it's something I can focus on in another episode, or maybe even a live stream sometime in the future. I don't plan on streaming soon, but it's something that I'll consider in the future when I've kind of got things more figured out. And here I'm just putting another key on the other side of the cargo hub, and up there I'll get to working on in a few minutes time. But here I'm just using these pavement decals. Yeah, they're decals, definitely, because they conform to the terrain and stuff, to kind of cover where the surface painter would otherwise kind of leave those little gaps. If you, I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about, but if you've used the surface painter before a lot, you get like little grassy gaps between pavement textures and other textures, and it just doesn't look that great. So I just tried using those decals to cover it up. Yeah, so here is the second major thing that I wanted to work on in today's episode. It's not that big a deal, but it's something that I wanted to focus on, and it's a bus depot. And I've used the biofuel bus depot from the vanilla game. I think that comes with Green Cities, the DLC, and used some school bus props that I had downloaded. About now, I actually restarted the game because I didn't really have any other bus props, so I went off into the workshop and found some that were Taiwanese, I think, or at least they're set off some in Taipei or Taiwan or something, and I'll be placing them down soon. I think I kind of lost track because in this episode I was a bit all over the place, but yeah, here's the buses anyway, and I'm just using the prop line tool to try and line them up in the right direction. Like now I get them right. And a few more little industrial buildings to fill up the rest of the space, because it makes sense to have industrial around the cargo area, because it's easy for them to get their goods to the cargo area, and also it'd be kind of a loud place, so you want to kind of leave all the noise pollution in one area if you're going to do things like that, and zoning codes probably would have meant that the industrial got put here. And I'm just putting down a few trailers for trucks and things around here, and I converted some of Ronix's ploppable asphalt, or ploppable pavement, ploppable asphalt, to procedural objects, and have angled it a bit to make a little ramp up to where the trailers are, because you've got the curb there, and yeah, trucks mounting a curb is probably not a good idea. And then beside this, mucking around with things, trying to get them aligned right. But beside this, I'm putting down these little concrete things to kind of stop them from driving off the edge, and just disabling parking there too, so that you don't get like weird things going on with the traffic behavior. And just making sure everything's fenced off. And now's the cinematics. So if you've enjoyed the video, then you should leave a like. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more of my videos, then you should subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.